Summer in southern Idaho usually stays between high 80s to high 90s with a handful of days over 100 degrees. Our area is considered high desert, which means our nights cool down fast and our days heat up quickly, thanks to our higher elevation and lack of humidity. We happened to get one of those days over 100 degrees, so we decided working inside with an air conditioner was a good choice. Plus, we haven't focused on an RV project for a while now, so it was time to tackle one of the biggest eyesores in our fifth wheel, the kitchen. Welcome to Ginger and the Giant. First up was prepping the space by doing my least favorite chore, dishes, then scraping off the overspray from when we painted the interior of our RV a few months back. Ginger proceeded to wipe down the counter with rubbing alcohol, paying special attention to the edges and around the sink to make sure that they were extra clean to avoid peeling corners, because we want this to last and look good. Since we are doing this renovation on a budget, we went with a peel and stick waterproof contact paper instead of replacing the whole countertop. I would have to say one of the most difficult steps in applying this contact paper was wrapping it around the sink. Ginger's method was to secure the contact paper to the counter around the sink, then hold the excess up at a 90-degree angle with a little slack so that when he would push along the sink side with his finger, it would slide right into place. Once one side was lined up, he would cut the excess, ease around the corner to repeat the earlier steps for the next side. Applying this peel and stick contact paper was a challenge, but thankfully Ginger has some experience using similar material on wrapping cars. Almost 15 years into marriage with Ginger, I'm still constantly blown away with how many skills and talents he has. The third piece we stuck to the countertop ended up creasing, which was totally my fault, so we pulled out my hairdryer to try and work it out, to no avail. We ended up scrapping it and starting over with a new piece, and I'm glad to report this one worked smoothly. Here we are pulling off the strip of horizontal wallpaper that really should have been dealt with before paint, but we were down to the wire at that time and it just didn't happen. Thankfully, the backsplash we chose covers all of this up. We just wanted the wall to be as smooth as possible before adding to it. With our small space, I figured this would be a good time to try a new product I've been curious about. And yes, it's another peel and stick, and we went with what I would call a vertical scalloped subway, but it's also been called a long fish scale tile. Looking back, we should have pulled out and used Ginger's miter saw to make sure each cut was right where we wanted it to be. But we were impatient, and we had a utility knife that could do the job well enough. All the edges will eventually be covered with trim pieces, and the window will someday be dressed with a curtain. And as much as I would love perfection, I'm okay without it for now. Honestly, I'm just happy that our kitchen will look better than it did before. If you've ever wanted to try a product like this and don't know where to find it, we've left the link to what we've used in this video in the description. If you've used something like this before, or if you plan to in the future, we would also love to hear about it. Drop a comment, tell us about your satisfaction and experience. One thing we learned about this particular product was that it wasn't super forgiving. In our opinion, that is both good and bad. The adhesive sticks really well, so it was frustrating to accidentally touch the back of the tile to the wall while lining it up because when we peeled it off, it left residue. But when we got it lined up and pushed it into the wall to seal the deal, it didn't want to budge. So if you have a steady hand and a level eye, you'll be able to use this product like a champ. And if you don't have those skills, but still want to use something like this, maybe just relieve yourself of being a perfectionist like I had to do. Don't mind our unconventional tool choice, we were just being resourceful, and you can see here that Ginger would go over each of his cuts multiple times so it would be easier to snap the tile to the dimensions needed for the space. And this is footage of how sticky the adhesive on the tiles were. We had to be so careful to not transfer it anywhere by constantly peeling the residue off our fingers, which was a pain. This corner was tricky. The range hood was right in the way and only left us a very small space to work in, but this wasn't the hardest spot to tile. The most difficult spot was actually around the window. The curved corners were not nice to us, but you'll see more on that later. Something I wished we would have known sooner and learned late in the project was to keep the wax paper barrier on the back of the tile up until the last second. What I mean is, instead of pulling it all off at once, we started peeling back a portion of the wax paper, sticking that portion on the wall, then we would peel back a little more wax paper to expose the adhesive, stick that to the wall, and repeat until the wax paper was fully removed and the tile was fully stuck to the wall. This method would have made this project a lot easier had it been used from the beginning.
My turn.
Now for the difficult job of tiling around the window. The original strategy was to hold up the tile to where it would be placed, see where it needed to be cut, rip off any excess tiles that fall within the window portion, eyeball the shape of the window, sketch it on the tile, cut off the perfect piece and stick it to the wall. This worked for the first piece, so we continued with this strategy. I thought things looked really good, then Ginger surprised me with changing the plan and tearing off the pieces that hung over the window trim. He did this because he couldn't see where he needed to cut clearly, and this helped him to see the window trim in between the tiles. The problem we ran into after this was to fill the gaps with the correct size tiles. We had to divide some very small pieces, which my weak fingers could barely handle. And the cut lines weren't great because we were working with very small, hard to cut pieces.
These pieces weren't fitting the best, so I pulled off the ones that were like super bad, and I found these in our little junk pile. I'm so thankful that I remembered those because that's going to fill the space a lot better from what was there earlier.
It was a long day, but we are very pleased with the way our RV kitchen renovation project turned out. It isn't 100% done, but I still feel like each project we take on just makes this place feel more like home.